Thompson Productions.
But where does that come from? You know, there's a difference between dumb and ignorant. Dumb is that a person cannot process information. They just don't have the capacity. They don't have an operating system, if I put it in computer language. Ignorance is that the data isn't there. What we're dealing with is not an operating system problem. It's a data problem. We have not downloaded the proper data, the correct, the true data into the minds of younger people. And we've assumed that they're going to grow up intellectually curious and intellectually honest, and that they will look for themselves, but they're not. That's the problem. They're not looking, they're taking at face value what some podcaster says, and the result is absolutely dangerous.
This is Tyler. Is it dangerous to take what the government is spewing out there or other propagandists? Just because you have a podcast doesn't mean you're wrong. We're going to talk about Mike Huckabee. He didn't. This is episode 3, part 3 of this ongoing saga. Mike Huckabee interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And he said 2 specific things, kind of about land, about the right to be an Israeli or not. Was he correct? And did he accidentally, well, no, I think he just thinks that apartheid is different, but we're going to get into it because I think we're going to go over we are going to go over the legal stuff about it. And does his definition mean that Israel is an apartheid state? Coming up.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
I think Tyler is amazing.
And I'm a fan of this show. I've watched several episodes.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. You stink, Tyler.
Never promise crazy a baby.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea.
Are either of you homosexuals?
I go both ways. What do you think?
You mean like flaming or?
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
But I do wonder, for others, in other cases, whether libertarianism today is just an excuse for many on the right to act selfishly.
Look at me. And then some fat asses in Washington started having opinions. The Olympic Committee started having opinions. You bitch, I know you! You started writing your opinions.
And it just makes me wonder, you're dead, bitch. You know, why are you doing this to this poor guy?
I don't care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
It's always the perfect answer. And banned Photoshop. Let me tell you, what are you drinking tonight, Tyler? Thanks for coming in here. I already went out with my wife and daughter. She's flying up. It's her birthday coming up. So we went out and I had a drink and I'm like, well, it's Monday. I'm not going to be drinking. But am I going to be drinking? I am. This is Knee Deep Clarity IPA, local brewer here. So there you go. Welcome everybody. Hope you've had a good one. We did pretty good over the weekend as far as, let me, hang on a second. There you go. Shut the barn door in case someone's walking by. We did pretty good over the weekend. You know, talking about me on Twitter, getting a few views going over here. So I think we'll just keep it going. If you're new to the channel, I mean, welcome, and go to tyleryonke.substack.com. That's where we kind of give out the notices. So if you got it, you can sign up for free. You can also put in some money. I think we're going to go and do episode 2 of what was the Lone Gunman show. We did episode, I think it was like the first one, the pilot, which they literally were predicting the takedown of the Twin Towers. So maybe we'll watch. There's like 13 episodes. Maybe we'll go through that one. So sign up over there, and we'll get to it coming up. Look, Huckabee does a 2.5 hour or so episode with Tucker Carlson. There's been a lot of fallout about it, and I wanted to talk about a few things. I was going through because I wanted to find some specific clips. One of the clips he was saying, I think we talked about this, and I even showed it on the show last time, which is he's like, when you say to the river, to the sea, you know, what does that mean? It's annihilation. Bibi Netanyahu's son on his Twitter account literally it says, from the river to the sea, this flag is all you'll see, and it's the Israeli flag. So, you know, the propaganda that we have by people. So, but tonight we're going to step back. There's other things that really got me worked up. We're going to do some legal analysis, but I thought I'd mention a few other items he talked about there. One was the military, as far as the most, you know, Israel is the most, I don't know, merciful, something like that. careful, military or something that he goes on. I thought Clint Russell, Liberty Lockdown, did a good breakdown. He actually did that on the numbers. What's crazy about that, and I saw someone else, I had made the case a little bit here, and I think you're going to kind of see this with some of the stuff, which is Mike Huckabee, I don't know that he's ever been pushed on these things. Or he doesn't care. That's what actually is more like it, which is you see this from Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz got annihilated by Tucker Carlson. I think everyone, said, especially like the biblical stuff, right? Israel. Oh, is it the state of Israel? And Ted is like not a dummy. So, and the analysis that you have to do to be able to get to be an attorney, you've gone through some analysis, not just memory. And then you've got to understand, a bunch of things to understand, to argue before the Supreme Court and other things. So he's not a dummy. And so, certain specific, so if you want to take this from the legalistic point of view about God blesses those that bless themselves. I watched a video of a pastor talking about this, and it's like, it's not just super simple. You got to follow along. But once you follow along, the logical point, you're just like, oh, Ted's full of shit. So there's something to be said about these guys that are so just full of it and able to continue to spew it out there with seemingly no record. I've got to maybe think about this. Maybe I was wrong, right? And then there's, which might be some sort of psychopathic behavior, right? If you really break that down. And then others are like, Tucker's talking about the Iraq war, and little does he know, he was for it. And it's like, yeah, he's admitted that, and he's talked about that quite openly. And the fact that he was for that, and you have some, recollection as to why. I mean, you could still be for it now, but can you please explain why, especially in light of the fake weapons of mass destruction and stuff? Huckabee couldn't. He was all on board still, and you're just like, where have you been? There's a lot of things a lot of things have changed in the last few years. And so, where have you been in reference to all this? Now, those are a few things. The legal stuff, and I didn't break this down specifically, and I was a little disappointed with Tucker, but you in 2.5 hours with someone that's pivoting all over the place. And let me finish the thought process, which is, Huckabee he said he's visited Israel like 50 some times. Okay. When you've done that so much, you're not going to any hostile place. You're not getting I just don't think in his world, he doesn't have any pushback. So he just says things like, Israel's the best, military in the world. Okay. Well, what are the stats that you I don't know. But you said it. So what, if if this one's better than before, what were the before? What was the U.S. military's? Okay, numbers. And then what are these new ones? So, because you've got to, if you're going to make that kind of a ratio statement, then you've at least got to know what you're saying. One is better than the other, what the other is. And he doesn't know. Well, then because you're spouting things, just like we saw on the preview thing there, where he's like, well, they're just getting told stuff and they're just believing it. Yeah, that's what you want them to. That's what you've been doing. You're not doing any kind of inquisition about these items and these questions and these data points, right? They mean things. Okay. All right. With that in mind, he also gave a breakdown of the right that Israelis have or Jews have to Israel based on a biblical part, and then based on legal, and is a little confusing from him, but I think he's a little confused. But he talks about it as if he's an authority. And, we can go through this right now, which is, Tucker was kind of saying, okay, but because it doesn't do anybody any good to go through things from a biblical. I've even heard Ben Shapiro talk about, I don't talk about politics based on religious aspects, right? I only do them. I try not to do that because it turns people off. Yeah, you're right. It does. So with that in mind, then you don't want to make those kind of arguments. So maybe you're not going to make land ownership arguments based on biblical principles. There was just was it the Grammys, the Emmys, something awards over there, and the celebrities are protesting I'll get to this in a second. I'm just looking how this thing got kind of cut off. Let's see if we can fix that here. Celebrities are protesting ICE. There we go. I have to do it this way. Celebrities are protesting ICE. And so with that protest, one of the chicks gets up there and says basically that she's living on stolen land. That's like, okay, well, or you talk about reparations, right? The legal aspect, the libertarian legal aspect of reparations. If you can, it's like with anything stolen. If it's stolen and you can trace ownership back, you might have a right to get this property returned. Okay, that's what it is. But you shouldn't just get something, reparations dealt to you based on the fact of what your color or ethnicity is, or something like that. That doesn't make sense, right? But Huckabee's for that. He's actually, there's a quote I saw the other day, him talking about that. I think about Gaza and the Israelis getting reparations for that. And I'm like, what? Okay, so with that in mind, if you're talking about like land ownership and you want to show what you own, we're talking about deeds, right? You're not just going and saying, oh, well, the Indians, I'm a Native American here in, California or wherever. There's Native Americans all over the United States. And this is my land. And you're like, yeah, but I live here. And it's like, okay, it's a casino. I get it. But it's just my house. You don't just get to come in and take it. But that's literally what he's claiming that's going, that their right is. And then with that, what's even more crazy is the fact that actually happens over in the settlements. We talk about that. Huckabee acted more like Israel's ambassador doing damage control than as America's ambassador. Yes, it was crazy. And it was really weird. I mean, he took on America in a few aspects, right? He was really defensive about Israel. And that's what I had said in a post right before I did the show last week, which was, there's an argument to be said, and I'm not saying he was, but I'm like, there's an argument to be made that Huckabee was more defensive of Israel than Putin was of Russia in their respective interviews with Tucker. Okay, because it's still crazy. Because what did he do? He impugned the U.S. military, saying that they're basically shit compared to, and that's a little hyperbolic here, compared to the IDF, right? When we're just looking at Gaza and you're seeing this destruction, you're like, what? And then you hadn't even know the numbers. He then called Aguilar, that U.S. Marine. He called him a liar and all kinds of stuff. That one is another one. If I hope someone pushes back on this. There's so many little strings to pull. He's a U.S. ambassador, and he claimed Aguilar is the guy that was over there doing, as a U.S. Marine. Then he's doing security over there. There's a few things. One, shooting at people that Huckabee claimed happened. Yeah, that happened. That is, I believe, a violation of the Geneva Convention. So you shouldn't be doing that. But then he said he was personally involved in getting this child cleared. Bring out the records. I want to see it. I wish, and there won't be, but I wish some sort of journalist, maybe Ian Carroll, someone, a private one, whatever we call them now, can go and maybe dig around and let's shake his tree, get these documents, show it. Now, there's going to be all kinds of no security because that's his excuse for everything. Hamas is going to be the ultimate, boogeyman. Could be, might be, but anyway. Those are just some outright issues. Now, so I want to talk about the legal aspects. We're going to play a clip here. Then we're going to talk about the legal definition of apartheid. We're also going to talk about the right of return, which is a legal standard for being able to come back and have citizenship in Israel. There's multiple ways of having citizenship. Who is eligible? And then once you have that, what is it? Do you have voting rights? Do you not have voting rights? These are all kinds of things that, Huckabee just kind of warms over, just glosses over, or he massages them to the point where it's just your typical talking points. And he's not done his duty. I would imagine if you're, an ambassador of another foreign country, part of your job there is to understand the laws of this land, not as this country is propaganda. If you're in Russia, Soviet times, and you're an ambassador there, are you just saying, Russia good, Russia good? Hey, this is what they're claiming. They're the most moral army. They're the most, no, that's not what they do. Are you going to understand the human rights issues in those countries and advocate for Americans, or advocate for maybe even the citizens of that country, right? That are getting shit on. Okay, so we've got some of those aspects. Let's play this at 1.25 speed. Make sure I'm there. Yes, I am. And I got 2 clips here. Neither one of them are necessarily short, but I want to get to the main parts here. And this one, we're going to play it, and then we're going to kind of push back on some of the stuff that Huckabee's saying. So take it away, Maestro Tucker.
Who has a right to the land?
Yeah.
And you said it's a mixture of religion and ethnicity. Because as I noted, and you agree, many of the founders, maybe the majority of the founders of modern Israel, did not believe in God at all. So they were not religious Jews. They weren't religious at all. They were atheists. They said they were atheists. I believe them. So that suggests it's ethnic. But it's also true, as you well know, because there's a famous court case about this, that ethnic Jews who convert to Christianity do not have the right of return. That was settled by the Israeli Supreme Court. I'm very confused. So that would suggest it's not ethnicity, because you invalidate your Jewishness by converting to Christianity?
There are a number of Messianic Jews who live in Israel.
Okay. But the right of return is a specific thing, and I will get into it, but maybe I should lay the groundwork here because he mixes all this all in, okay? If you are a Jew anywhere in the world, you have a right to have Israeli citizenship by what they call the right of return. Now, there was this, as you said, there's this famous court case. We will actually break it down. It was after World War II, and if you've heard me before, I've talked about this with Rabbi Shapiro, who mentions it as well. But he mentions it because there's some crazy shit. Like you can be an atheist, but then if you want, maybe the right of return doesn't apply to you. So Messianic would be a Christian, but you're of Jewish ethnicity. So, the Jews have it every which way they want, which is I'm a ethnicity, but I'm also a religion. So you're discriminating against me on 2 fronts, perhaps.
I'm aware of that number, but you're not contesting what I'm saying because it's a very famous court case.
The right of return has to do with your mother, your grandmother. It has to do with family ties.
It's ethnic.
There's a lot of, sure, ethnicity is a big part of the right of return.
Great.
To make aliyah, then to come to Israel, to live here.
Then if both of your parents are Jewish and you have an ethnic right to the land, you are one of Abram's descendants, but you convert to Christianity, how is it you don't have the right to return? I'm totally confused.
But I know a number of people who have returned as Christians, but have Jewish history.
But he doesn't know that. So he's just, this is where, it'd be better if you just say, I'm not sure about this, the legality, because we're going to walk through it in a little bit. So he makes that claim and he's wrong. He's going to be completely wrong because that's not how it works.
You're saying that Jews who convert to Christianity have a right, a legal right to return? Because I
know that they do. When you say, do they have a right to return, do they prove?
It's a legal category, as in any government.
Which is by their family history, their grandmother, their mother, and there are many aspects of that.
I've read it. I think
but I know that these are people who are Christian, and they came here, made aliyah. They had Jewish blood, Jewish history. They were Christian, Messianic, but they came here, and they were welcomed here.
Okay, he's just full of shit. He's completely full of shit. But we're going to keep walking through this. I don't want to break his mojo just yet.
They were given full legal rights.
Absolutely.
In a passport.
Yeah.
So clearly it's not true that you invalidate your right of return by converting to Christianity. That's just false.
I'm not aware of that. I know that there are a number of Christians here. I go to church with Christians every week here.
Of course. And do you have a right to come and say, I'm an ethnic Jew, even though I practice Christianity, therefore I have every bit as much right to move into a settlement in the West Bank or into East Jerusalem or anywhere I want, Galilee, anywhere, because I'm returning to the land of my forefathers. I have a legal right in the state of Israel, even though I've converted to Christianity. You're saying that's true?
I'm saying I know people who've done it. Now, can I tell you what the law specifically is? I'm not sure.
Well, then I know people that have done it. Do you know that? Under the right of return, okay?
Really
I'm a Christian. I don't have any Jewish roots, so therefore I cannot quote you the law. If you want me to do that, I'll look at it.
Will it really matter?
That doesn't make sense. I'm not Jewish. I don't have any Jewish roots, so I can't quote you the law. I can look up the law. I can look up the law of many different nations. I even have a book in here. What is it called? It's a David Friedman book. Not that David Friedman. It's a different one. Basically, it's laws of the world type of thing. Where is it? I don't see it in here. Anyway, it's got all the different kind of laws about different nations and different cultures and everything. So you can understand laws in other nations, even if you don't, if you aren't from there.
Because you're saying, in fact, people in the United States are being called anti-Semites, a lot of them, including me, because they somehow don't believe that Israel has a right to this land.
Do you think Israel has a right to this land?
No, you haven't defined what the land is, and
Well,
you haven't defined who
No,
Israel is. So I really don't know.
It is the land they're living in now, the borders that they have.
The borders are moving. The borders have moved in the last year.
What do you mean?
Before we go on from here, I played Tucker's interview with this Christian from Palestine. He was 18 years old, living I think in the West Bank area until he was 18, and then he's actually an American Christian. He's got American citizenship and whatnot. It's fascinating because he talks about it from a different perspective, which is, Huckabee outright just says, Zionism means, do these people have a right to exist? And this guy's like, no. When you live there, Zionism means something else to a non-Jew. It means them basically doing completely random and violent stuff to you, or just taking your house or whatever. That's what Zionism means to someone who's not a Jew who lives over there, like in the West Bank or whatnot. So, quit saying, do they have a right to this land? Do they have a right to this land? Do they have a right to exist? Yes. But do they have a right to be this nation or what? I don't know. I don't know about that. Let's get into this. JC, oh my God, hi Tyler, hi. Have you seen the clip of the guy shitting his pants after being asked about Israel and the nuclear proliferation treaty? I have, not that I know of. Maybe you want to send that to me. Righteous Gemstones is in the chat as well. Okay, so what I want to do now is we're going to go, because I've done a lot of kind of work today on this. And this is a bunch of my notes here. This is a leading case about the right of return to Israel. Now, there are multiple ways that you become a citizen in the state of Israel, okay? You could be born there, okay? You can immigrate there. You have a right to return, naturalization. There's multiple steps, okay? But this right of return is specific. Now, this was a case. This Oswald Reufelson, also known as Brother Daniel, was born Jewish in Poland. During World War II, he converted to Christianity and later became a Carmelite monk. He applied for Israeli citizenship under the, quote, law of return, which grants Jews the right to immigrate to Israel and receive citizenship. Was a person born Jewish who voluntarily converted to Christianity still considered a Jew for the purposes of the law of return? Because you have to be a Jew. So this was the way that the law was back then. It's changed. Some statutes and amendments to it have changed. But the whole thing that the Supreme Court said at the time was a person who voluntarily converts to another religion is not considered a Jew, okay, under the law of return. Therefore, Reufelson was not entitled to automatic citizenship under that law. The court reasoned that the term Jew in the statute should be interpreted according to the common national understanding of Jewish identity, not solely religious or halakhic definitions. The aftermath of this, Reufelson was later granted Israeli citizenship through naturalization, but not the law of return, which is what Tucker was asking. So you've got some confusion there about like the return and what that means, but words are very specific. And don't you think that as a Jewish person, you're going to be very lawyeristic about everything? Yes. And that's the way that, a lot of the laws and the immigration laws specifically are. Theirs specifically says, hey, if you're a Jew, come in. Now, the Supreme Court then was all over the board about, let's just say this here. The decision of Reufelson v. Minister of the Interior exposed a major ambiguity in Israel's law of return. The statute granted immigration rights to, quote, a Jew, but did not define who qualifies as a Jew. The ambiguity led to a later statutory amendments. Now we'll get to that as well. In Reufelson, the Supreme Court Israel held a person of Jewish, we just talked about this. Why do I have it? However, the court did not create a comprehensive definition of who a Jew is. That uncertainty remained. The political and legal pressure after. In the cases in the 1960s, public controversy intensified over whether Jewish identity should be defined religiously or nationally, whether someone with one Jewish parent qualifies, how converts to Judaism should be treated, whether secular self-identification is enough. The Knesset eventually intervened to clarify the law. The 1970 amendment of the law of return. In 1970, the Knesset amended the law of return and added an explicit statutory definition. Quote, Jew, unquote, means a person who was born of a Jewish mother or has converted to Judaism and who is not a member of another religion, okay? This language directly reflects the logic of Reufelson. Now, one, I'm probably mispronouncing his name. And then two, I would say this about that, which is another religion. I think that's specific in there, right? Because if you're an atheist, I don't know that that means you, according to them, that is another religion. Because they want atheist Jews in there. They don't want Christian Jews, okay? That is really, really odd, right? But that's just for a law of return, Tyler. We're not talking about citizenship. You can get citizenship another way. We saw Royfison actually gets citizenship through naturalization. Okay, and maybe that's what your buddy Huckabee is talking about. His friends who are citizens, but they're Christians. You're not Christians, citizens of Israel through the law of return. You were either born there, converted, whatnot, but you weren't taken in this way, okay? So he's full of crap in that sense. Not a member of another religion. This clause codified the court's holding in Royfison that conversion out of Judaism disqualifies a person from the law of return eligibility. The court's interpretation became statutory law. So it's out of. Now, what is Rabbi Shapiro made clear as far as, talking about with this is, and we know this because there's all kinds of Jews that fall into this. You can be an atheist and be considered a Jew under this thing, okay? But you can't be a Christian. So it's so crazy. Expansion to family members. Amendment also extended eligibility beyond Jews themselves to a child of a Jew, a grandchild of a Jew. Remember, though, you haven't converted to another religion. The spouse of a Jew, the spouse of a child or grandchild of a Jew. This broadened the law beyond traditional religious definitions. Notably, a grandchild of a Jew can immigrate even if not Jewish under religious law, but someone born Jewish who converts to another religion remains excluded. That structure shows the compromise. Ethnic descent creates eligibility. Conversion out bars eligibility. Long-term doctrinal impact. After 1970 amendment, courts no longer had to define Jew from scratch. The statutory language limited judicial discretion. Later litigation shifted towards recognition of different types of conversions, Orthodox versus Reform conservative, whether a person is a member of another religion, civil registry versus immigration status. Subsequent cases refined how conversions are recognized, but the exclusion of converts to another religion traces directly back to Royfison. The structural significance. Royfison sharpened Israeli law in three lasting ways. One, national, not purely theological interpretation. The court treated, quote, Jew as a civic national term. Affiliation matters. Voluntary adherence to another religion legally breaks eligibility. Legislative codification. The Knesset adopted the court's exclusion rule into statutory text. The bottom line, the Royfison decision forced the Israeli legislature to define Jew in a statutory language, and the 70 Amendment codified the exclusion of those who convert to another religion, adopt a maternal descent or conversion standard, expanded eligibility to certain non-Jewish relatives. In short, Royfison transformed a vague immigration entitlement into a legally structured identity rule that still governs Israeli law today. If you'd like, da-da-da-da-da. Okay. So there you go. Just watched Pete Q and Dave Cullum episode. Oh, okay. Thanks for coming on over. Glad you're here. Okay, so that's a little bit of a breakdown of the law of return. Okay, because that was kind of important stuff here. Now I've got let's show this because some of these aren't really coming through for some reason. I'm curious if you think Huckabee is blackmailed, stupid, or just delusional about Israel due to his evangelical faith. I don't think it's due to stupidity. Can he not realize how stupid he looks? So look, I think I touched on this at the beginning. He may have stepped out. I don't know. But you see this with Ted Cruz too. I use Ted Cruz. I mean, Huckabee's no dummy. He's been a governor of a state. He plays the bass guitar. He's had a TV show on Fox News. He's lost weight, okay? He's no dummy. He's ran for president. Now he's the ambassador. Ted Cruz, I think, is even a better example because Ted Cruz, because I don't see them different, okay? They're exactly the similar cog. You can just take one out and pop them back in as far as the kind of things that they're saying, which belies understanding. One, it is like they're both really lame with their religion stuff too. This is very, if you know, I think the Schofield Bible has been a problem. Those are notes by a human being rather than, you know, what the Bible actually, if you want to say the Bible is divine, okay, and came directly from, you know, the Word of God. But let's say it's not even that. It's the Bible, okay? It's what, you know, basically has been written down in text here. Then Schofield comes along and puts interpretations of things here, which people like Huckabee and Ted Cruz seem to think is more important. It's like some sort of, you know, legal interpretation that's walking you through, you know, how to read the Constitution or the legality of the cases. But instead of like, this is an interpretation, but that's not actually what the cases themselves are, or the actual structure of, you know, the legal framework is. So they're taking Schofield and they're just taking it in verbatim. I don't know if they refuse to. I think they are people out there, dispensationalists and whatever. I'm not too heavy into all that, but as far as my knowledge, but it seems like to me, people that are trying to do something started out probably where they're trying to do something to they're trying to do what God hasn't done yet, right? We're going to set up the third temple. We're going to, you know, what was it? Judas that betrayed Jesus. You know, hey, look, I'm going to do something. I'm going to set Jesus up. So then he has to have a violent action and save us. And then the kingdom's going to come and he's going to, you know, I'm going to do this for him. It's like, dude, people out there thinking that they're going to do what God is going to do himself, you're going to be all kinds of problems. I think that's where the Huckabee stuff starts from. But then at some point, you're in this echo chamber and you say these things and no one pushes back. And so you just listen to them and you just follow along. And for some reason, I don't know, because you're right. It's not stupidity. They're not stupid people. And maybe it's blind, but you can't. Is it blind faith? But I think they're heretics. Honestly, I think, you know, believing in this and following along this is actually heretical as far as your religion goes. I don't know. It's a bit much. I'm curious, does Huckabee stupid or delusional? Does he realize how dumb he looks holding these positions in 2026? I don't think he does realize that, because he is ranting along with, you know, Meghan McCain's and all, you know, the Babylon Bees, just the whole Zionist full. They're just coming out and they're going, oh, he just slaughtered it. And it's like, you say things in this interview that I mentioned him, like the military stuff, that don't make sense. You can't make a claim, and then when someone pushes you on where you got that claim, you just like, I made it up. It's bizarre. Okay. So with that in mind, now, how do you become a naturalized citizen of Israel? Okay. That's kind of our next bet here. Basic eligibility requirements for Israel. An applicant must generally be physically present in Israel, because remember, Royfenson or whatever his name was there, or these Christians that Huckabee is talking about, some of them could be naturalized citizens, okay? You have to, at the time of the application, be present in Israel, have resided in Israel for about 3 out of the last 5 years, be entitled to reside permanently, usually meaning lawful permanent resident status. Have settled or intended to settle in Israel, have some knowledge of Hebrew, renounce prior citizenship, that's the Jonathan Pollard standard, but he got the right of return anyway. Take a loyalty declaration. The application must declare loyalty to Israel as a Jewish and democratic state. See, now this is important, because if you're going to become naturalized, you have to say it's a Jewish state, okay? So I understand, or democratic, which to me is just like, okay, just throw out any of your convictions or whatever, because is it really democratic? Because we're going to play another quote here with Huckabee about what it means to be a resident or citizen, and what even is that? Naturalization is not automatic, even if requirements are met. The Minister of the Interior has discretionary authority to approve or deny applications, waive certain requirements in special cases. Foreign spouses of Israeli citizens may receive temporary residency, then permanent residency, then citizenship. This occurs through a graduated multi-year process. However, under the Citizenship and Entry into Israel law, Special restrictions apply to spouses from the West Bank or Gaza. This is where we start to step into apartheid territory, okay? You're a certain type of person. I don't know that we could just let you in. I know you're a Christian. Oh, you're a Christian. But you're in West Bank and Gaza. So a lot of litigation has gone through the Supreme Court about this. Key distinctions: naturalization versus law of return. Law of return, automatic right for Jews. Naturalization is discretionary for everyone. Law of return, no residency period required because Bible says. And then the naturalization, 3 of last 5 years residency. Law of return, no Hebrew requirement. Naturalization, Hebrew required. Okay. Law of return, no standard renunciation, and you have to renunciate if you are naturalized. So, law of return, that's where you're getting a lot of your dual citizenships, right? You're not going to get a dual citizenship to a non-Jew. Does that work for everybody? Okay, so because I just think that if you want to go nefarious and go this espionage problem that we have. What I think it's just out and open, and you have a lot of Christian Zionists that are working kind of for this same thing. This is a problem right here. If you're going to become a naturalized citizen, Israel makes you renunciate your prior citizenship, no matter where it is. America, doesn't matter. You want to be a citizen here, you have to renunciate. Oh, you're a Jew. Oh, you know what? And it's got to be through your mom, okay? Because moms giving birth can't fake it. Or, like a dad, I don't know, you have to do a genetic test, and we're not going to do genetics because now we're in the problem of showing that you're from the Middle East, Eastern Russia, maybe, and you're not from the Middle East, and that could be a problem if you do genome mapping and whatnot. So this renunciation generally just require, and no requirement here is interesting. No loyalty oath required at entry. Whereas there's a loyalty declaration required on naturalization, okay? Because they know it's a Jewish state and you're a Jew, therefore your loyalty will always be here and everything else will be subversive. Subset of that. And I'm saying subversive in that case. JC says Huckabee is 100% blackmailed, but I think they've taken good care of him too. Well, that's the question I had going in with this, which was, when he's saying I've been to, Israel 50 some times. Like, whoa, who's paid? Who's paid? Oh, I have friends that have done. Who are those friends? Let's talk about those. Practical notes: processing can take several years. Security background checks are routine. The Interior Ministry has broad discretion in assessing center of life and good character. If to naturalize in Israel, non-Jew typical must reside legally in Israel for several years. We've heard all about that. Okay, now we're going to go to the apartheid stuff here. And let's go to that right now. Let's see if we do this on 1.25 as well.
My last question is about Christians, both Christians who visit and Christians who live here, particularly in the West Bank. I spoke to someone recently, a Christian minister who...
Actually, this is a really good question, Minder. Just to make sure, we are for apartheid, right? Look, I'm for non-hypocrisy, okay? So if that's what... And I've said this, Pete Quinones has talked about, like, hey, kind of the idea that this would be what we want to do from a Christian perspective here in the United States. Okay, I get it if that's what you're saying. So at some point, if that's who you are, you've got to kind of look at Israel in respect, right? You got to, if that's what you want, you kind of look at them and you go, respect, because we should do that here, da-da-da-da-da. They're doing exactly what they want over there. Understood, but then you've got to stop, one, shitting on Christians, okay? If they're supporting you. And you've got to stop acting like you're some sort of democracy. And you've got to stop this gaslighting that somehow, everyone's against us. It's like, yeah, but look how you've set this place up, okay? I get that. And then you act like people that are already there, they're the problem. So sure, if you want apartheid and you want to do this, South Africa style, just understand exactly what this means, and then, take on the mantle. Stop acting like you're some sort of bastion of freedom. I think that's the case. Okay, let's listen to this.
Grew up in a town right outside Bethlehem. We would know it as Shepherd's Field in the New Testament, where the shepherds were tending their flocks in Matthew. And of course, the angels come and announce the arrival of Jesus in nearby Bethlehem. His family's been Christian, he says, for 2,000 years. He says where he grew up is now surrounded by settlements of people who are not from Israel at all. A lot of them are from the United States, Jewish settlements. They have different roads that the native Christians are not allowed to use. I don't quite know how that works. And he described a story where his mother was shot outside their house by an IDF soldier for reasons no one ever explained. She survived, but no one was ever punished for it or even explained why they did it. And he basically described being terrorized by settlers. And I wonder if that's a concern for you, for the native population, the indigenous population.
Did you say this happened in Bethlehem?
It happened in Shepherd's Field, so it's a Christian village. Bet Sahur, I think is its name, right outside Bethlehem.
If it's in Bethlehem,
it's not in Bethlehem. I think it's Bet Sahur, I believe, is the name of the village.
Because there are no Israelis in Bethlehem, none. There are no Jews in Bethlehem.
Are there new settlements outside Bethlehem, where he is from?
Over in areas.
That's a interesting little comment. There are no Israelis in Bethlehem. There's no Jews. Once again, what is that territory? What is the West Bank? What is on their passport? I say this over and over and over. What's on the passport of someone from the West Bank? What's on the passport of someone that's happened to survive that's in Gaza? Okay. Oh, they're an occupied territory. Wait, what? Who is it? I'm sorry, what?
C, but not in Area A. There are none.
Well, he describes the town he grew up in, and I guess I wonder why a Christian whose family's been there for 2,000 years.
There are Palestinian Christians throughout Judea and Samaria. That's true. I've been over to visit them. I go there regularly.
I know you have, and some have been,
We've advocated for some that are Muslim, but they're American citizens, and we advocated because there was...
But why can't they just drive into Jerusalem to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre? Why do they need a permit to do that if they're from there?
Because of the acts of terrorism that has made it impossible to do it.
But
Okay, so we're gonna just start right there, which is to make excuses for people who live there. Okay, which fine if you want, because he's going to go down the route. He's going to justify why this law is in place. Okay, but then if you want, that's fine. There's do that. But you have to understand, we have laws in content neutral laws, as an example, or laws that may if they're intentionally discriminating, the law itself is neutral. Okay, on that, and this is what people try to say as an example for. You can't have ID for voting. It discriminates against a black person. Okay, what specifically in the law discriminates against a black person? Nothing. It's content neutral. Okay, but he's not talking about content neutral laws. He's talking about, like, we've got problems. They're not Jews, therefore it's going to be a problem. There's acts of violence. Okay, which is that could be. But you have to understand when he says that and how he's trying to justify this, that you then need to go, well, what about those people? Well, you're a democracy. I forgot, you're a democracy. Oh, but we can't allow this. You're going to replace everything here because he tried to muddle it up so much, and he was wrong and confused. Remember, and the law is confused, right? Which is you have a right to return if your mom's a Jew, you are a Jew, but not a religious Jew, as long as you're not a Christian. You could then have this to come in. So there's, it's so, I almost said it.
How many suicides? No. Let me, you asked this question. So what do we do? Just say you're a Christian? Oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but you're wearing a suicide bomb?
Do Christians do suicide bombs?
They could. If all they have to do is just announce I'm a Christian. There were over 1,000.
Why not just get an identity card that says I'm Christian?
Let me just finish this. Before Israel put the green line up, and before they took great care to put checkpoints in place, there were over 1,000 suicide bombers in 1 year.
It was awful. I remember it, but I don't think any of them were Christians, and
they may not have been.
Okay, but my point.
But see, this is where I'm thinking Tucker goes wrong, to me at least. And I watched Pete yesterday, and Pete made a great point, which is it's kind of the whole thing that Dave Smith has said about like Donald Trump, which is I don't hate him as much as the left wants me to hate him. And it's like maybe my hatred for the Muslims is not. Now I didn't serve. Okay, I was not over in their land killing them, so I get it, right? But I know people that have, and they get, hey, you don't understand. Okay, but except for you going to their homeland and killing them, what have they done to you? Oh, 9/11. Okay, right. Do we have an applause for that, or maybe we should go this one? Yeah. So with that in mind, if you just take this from, because you always have to go back to what is Israel and what is the Mike Huckabees of the world? What are they saying? The most moral army. Okay, well, are they the most moral country then as well? Yeah, but we've got to precog, right? We've got to have these precogs where we know ahead of time that they are slimy and that they're going to commit acts of violence. And you know how we know that? They're not Jews. If they're not Jews, we're good to go. Well, I'm like, well, what if we do this thing where people escape countries to go to where you were, and they happen to be, pedophiles and such? Now, do we just gonna say all those? Oh, there's a lot of them that happen to be from a certain religious group in a certain Middle Eastern country that doesn't fit with everything else. So now are all Jews pedophiles? Right? All Arabs are going to be, vested, and you're like, Tyler, you don't understand, you don't live over here. Okay, but stop acting like you are the most moral fucking country too. We just went through your immigration stuff. Fine, you can weed people out. Let's just say, instead of being so confused about religion and ethnicity, let's just say black and white. What if they look swarthy? Okay. Oh, okay. South Africa had a way about it.
We could find out if they were.
So you're saying we just trust somebody if they come up and say, I'm a Christian, I just want to go to the Holy Sepulchre, let me in?
What I'm saying is that Christians have a right to go to the Holy Sepulchre. Israel does not own it.
I don't like this argument. I think this is not a good one either.
Had possession of it since 1967. It doesn't belong to Bibi. It belongs to me and you and every other Christian.
Bibi was probably a young person. I'm not even sure he was.
No Christian should ever be barred from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Should Christians be barred from Joseph's tomb in Nablus?
I don't know. Let's just start with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Okay, let's start with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
And I don't understand on what grounds they are. Well, they can't if they're Christians at Bet Sahur. So I don't understand why they're a threat. They're not a threat. And why won't you, as the Christian minister, U.S. ambassador to the state of Israel, say to the prime minister, you can't allow this? Your country exists in part because American Christians support you, so you have to treat us well.
Part of the problem, Tucker, is that in the Palestinian Authority, and that's what we're talking about, there are Christians. Look, I know some Christians who live in Bethlehem, and that is Area A. Bethlehem was 80+% Christian before Oslo. 80% Christian, less than 20% Muslim. Today it's flipped. It's now 80+% Muslim. It's very few Christian. And some of the Christians that I personally know and know well.
So there's the problem, though, Tucker has of pigeonholing it just Christian, which is, okay, because he's trying to get Mike on like some sympathies about Christians, and I get it, right? Yeah, hierarchies, right? Jew way up here, Christian down here, and then Muslim way down at the bottom, right? That's what he's trying to appeal to Huckabee's inner morality scale, okay? But I don't like it. It's like you're either, and once again, it goes back to Minder's question here: Are we good or bad on apartheid? Be what you want. But I'm pushing back on Huckabee because he's claiming most moral, all this stuff here. So I'm pushing back on his own mentality, right? You can't be saying these kind of things and then trying to justify it, and just because someone is of a different religion. Well, and if that's the case, then can't I just justify not liking a certain country based on the fact that the right of return, everything else is based on a religion? Okay. No, now you're anti-Semitic. Wait a second. Now I'm anti-Semitic and you want to push me out because I think a certain religion is low, right? You just said we can't let them use the same fucking streets, okay? We can't even let the Christians do it because the Christians might be mistaken for an Arab that's going to blow you up. And since he's going to blow you up, we can't do that. So you know what? We just have the Jews do it. What? But this doesn't, so then I could say the same stuff. Maybe I don't want the Jews in here, right? You can say these kind of things. No, you can't. Wait, what? It doesn't make sense, Mike Huckabee. But he's a Christian pastor, so listen to what he says.
Let that surprise you. They're Zionists. They're hardcore Zionists.
And some are
Let me finish
really
my train of thought here.
Okay.
So in the Palestinian Authority, they still teach children from the time they're 5 years old that the greatest thing in the world is to kill Jews. And that if they end up being a martyr. And if they kill Jews, they will get a pension for life if they die. And if they don't, they'll get a paycheck for life, and their families will. And it's called the Prisoners and Martyrs Fund. We call it pay for slay in the U.S. It is against our law.
Are a lot of Christians collecting on that?
I don't know.
Zero. So my question remains, and I'm a little bit frustrated at this point, because I'm not defending Hamas. I hate suicide bombing. I hate suicide. I hate violence. I hate the killing of children, period. Why can't a Christian who was born there, whose family's been there for 2,000 years, following Jesus for 2,000 years, drive, because it's really close, to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre? He poses no threat. And why can't the United States government advocate for him to do that?
We do advocate for Americans because that's our job. And it doesn't matter whether they're Palestinian or Israeli. We do that.
Okay. I bet the Huckabees. I blew it a bit. Okay, on my prep here, I had some stuff, and we're gonna walk through what apartheid is because we want to get that. I'm for apartheid in a Hoppian sense. Yeah, but you know what? Hoppian he's talking about social pressure, right? And I get that. I'm not gonna walk through your preferences. I'm just talking about when we are sending money to a country, okay, and we are going to go to war for them in every which way, whether you think that we actually are or not, we are, okay. And their claims are being out there, you've at least got to assess them on their level of what they're making claims of. And I think it's bullshit. And I don't want them then coming over to my country and telling me what I can be doing. Oh, you know what? They're dual citizens. So shut the fuck up, Tyler. Okay. Now, I fucked up, which is what they were talking about there. There are video after video after video of Jewish kids and Jews around there talking about what they think about Gazans and Palestinians. They do not think of them as anything useful, right? It's animal level. It's Randy Fine, and he tried to pass it off of like, they just don't like dogs. No, you're saying Muslims are, and actually Huckabee was getting that there. They're below that, right? And then he tries to, so you're not talking about two high-standing societies. One he'll say is the most moral, and the other one he says is the worst. And I don't think either one of them are necessarily great. But you're having this conflict for year after year after year. At some point, you're not going to be speaking nicely about these other people that are, your boot on neck, or that are flying suicide bombers and stuff in your cafes. You're not going to. You're going to think that they are the worst of the worst. And you've got the Hatfields and the McCoys going at it here, right? Probably worse. This is inbred. I don't know what they're doing anything there. But you've got a bunch of people that just really, really dislike each other. And we've got videos, and I should have done this, videos and videos and videos of people saying, young Jewish kids, Israelis, saying the most worthless, bad stuff about, Gazans and whatnot. Okay, so let's go to the international definition of what apartheid is. Under an international convention, is suppression and punishment of a crime of apartheid. Apartheid consists of inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over another racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. Now, okay, so is it really apartheid? Like, is it apartheid state if you live in Saudi Arabia, as an example, and it's based on religion? So is it based on religion, or is it based on ethnicity? But we've already talked about it. It's definitely based on ethnicity part, right? Because it's a lineage through your mom. Now, they throw in the religious part to kind of confuse it, but I think they do that so that you don't get any kind of because you're not going to have citizens of Gaza and Palestinian becoming citizens of Israel, citizens of Gaza and Palestine. Okay. The convention lists examples such as denial of the right of life and liberty, deliberate imposition of living conditions calculated to cause physical destruction, and legislative measures preventing participation in political, social, or economic, cultural life, segregation of populations along racial lines, expropriation of property, persecution of organizations opposing apartheid. Now, there's multiple types you can go into here, and I just thought I would actually think about some things here. We talked about just a little bit ago the loyalty oath. Now, you have to, if you are a person, a non-Jew that lives in Israel, and you've got to basically, is there a loyalty oath? It says, no, there's not. But if you want to be in the Knesset or you want to be in on the Supreme Court, as they say, you've got to say their loyalty oath in a sense that this Israel is a state for the Jews. So that's what you've got to declare. Now they're like, well, that's not a loyalty oath. Okay, but that's what you've got to be declaring. So when we just talked about here, the people being able to drive out of the West Bank, out of Gaza, they don't have any of the same rights. And, he's going to say, well, they're under the Palestinian Authority. Are they? Who controls that whole area? Okay. So I would say under that, it's a little bit suspect. Now let's go into Palestinians living in the West Bank. Most Palestinians in the West Bank are not Israeli citizens. They hold Palestinian Authority identification documents, may hold Jordanian passports, but generally do not have full Jordanian citizenship rights. They're typically regarded as residents of occupied territory, governed partly by the Palestinian Authority in certain areas. Under the Oslo Accords, the West Bank is divided into Area A, Palestinian civil and security control, Area B, Palestinian civil control, Israel security control, and C, full Israeli civil and security control. Most Palestinians live in A and B, but Israel retains overriding security authority throughout the territory. Palestinians in the West Bank are subject to Israel military law, Palestinian civil administration in areas A and B. Criminal matters involving Palestinians and security issues are often handled in the Israel military courts. That's understand that. So that's important to note, right? As far as what you're not in the civil courts. You're in the military courts, and I think that's because it's an occupied territory. That way they don't have to claim that they are specifically, under apartheid, because, well, they're not even under the civil courts. Yeah, and they don't have voting rights either. Israeli settlers living in the West Bank, they remain citizens of Israel, vote in Israeli elections, and are subject to Israel civil law, not military law. That's the huge part. That's like, habeas corpus and being able to, like the Guantanamo, right? We're just not going to bring them to justice. We're just going to hold them off this. It's not really, is it our territory? Is it? I don't know. We don't really put them on the American soil. Now they don't have habeas corpus. Now they don't have to we don't have to charge them with anything. We can just hold them there indefinitely. That's kind of the idea that you have here as well. Most states consider settlements inconsistent with Article 49.6 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, and Israel disputes this interpretation. Of course they do. East Jerusalem, distinct legal status. East Jerusalem was annexed by Israel in 1967. Not internationally recognized, Palestinians there typically hold Israeli permanent resident status. The right to apply for Israel's citizenship, not automatically granted. Most international community regards East Jerusalem as occupied territory. Legal distinctions. Palestinians and Israeli settlers living in the same geographic area are generally subject to different legal systems. There you go. But how do you become an Israeli? And you're not talking honestly, because we had this interview with this Christian Palestinian talking about this stuff in the West Bank as well. And he's like, we can't drive on the same roads. We're not Israeli. And we've talked about that. In the settlements, it's literally the right of return type of people. Those are the ones that are out there. So there are definitely Jewish, Israeli, probably dual citizenships for the most part out there. Movement, land use, building permits, criminal jurisdiction, different significantly depending on legal status. So there we go. I mean, Mike Huckabee has expressed this explicitly, and we have the documentation to prove it here. Group A and B for Palestinians, are they citizens? No. Palestinian Authority plus Israeli security, and then they're under the Israel military law, Palestinian civil law, and the Israel military law, Israeli. Citizens in Part C, they're not Israeli. They have legal administration over them, and the legal system is military law. And then the Israeli settlers, citizens of Israel, governing authority, Israel, citizen Israeli civil law. Now, I would also just get to some points here too, which is about land. Now, you Google and ChatGPT about land purchasing, and they're like, oh yeah, you can be an Arab, as an example, living in Israel. You're born there, you're a citizen. You can buy and sell land. Yeah, you can do that. Oh, did we mention that over 90+% of all land is owned by the state of Israel? It's through the Israel Land Fund. And they do lease actions out there because a lot of people they've sued about being able to buy land and stuff. So they have to sell land that's just in accordance. So they don't sell. They just do leasing. And then they screw them over as well. Okay, so we could talk about areas, law of return. We've talked about that. Military service is another one. Military service in Israel is mandatory for Jewish citizens. Most Arab citizens are exempt because certain benefits, housing, scholarships, employment are tied to military service. Indirect disparities can exist. Okay, so and there's also a problem about being marrying someone that lives in Gaza or Palestine or the West Bank. They don't, and you are a citizen. It doesn't grant them an automatic citizenship either. So it's a bit problem in terms of formal citizenship right. Arab citizens and Jews citizens have equal status under Israeli law. However, distinctions in immigration law, national identity provisions, military service linked benefits, certain land and family unification policies, whether this constitutes full, equal, or structural inequality is a matter of significant legal and political debate internationally. I had another item here. Yeah, there's no constitution in Israel. It's called the Basic Law, the nation state. The Knesset members of the Knesset must swear allegiance to the state of Israel, the standard parliamentary oath, as you would say, to the U.S. as well, but not a personal ideological stand. No Israeli citizen does not have to declare that Israel is a Jewish state as a condition of citizenship or ordinary civic participation. A loyalty oath referencing Israel as a Jewish and democratic state applies only in naturalization process for certain applicants. There's no general ideological declaration required for daily life, voting, or holding that. However, there's also, it's funny, you get stuff and it says that, but then it's like, however, most land and state administered leased rather than privately owned historical and administrative structures have generated ongoing legal and political debate about equality and justice. So there's in practice, a lot of things are stated, this is the way it is, and then in practice it's a bit different. Does Israel meet the definition of apartheid? That's the big question. This question depends on how the term apartheid is defined and applied under international law. Under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, apartheid is a crime against humanity, as defined as inhumane acts committed in the context of an institutionalized regime of systematic oppression and domination over racial group over another, with the intention of maintaining that regime. That's a big one here, right? Because the maintaining that regime, we saw that with the right of return. Okay, how you have to function that, and even being a citizen, how it doesn't necessarily extend out to external families. If you're a Christian, you're not going to get that right of return there. If you are Arab, and that's why they're not granting, the majority of these are out in the West Bank and or were in Gaza. If you were to allow them to have any kind of citizenship in voting, you're just going to get voted out. So that's maintaining that regime. That's kind of that whole structure that we've kind of gone through there. Similarly, the International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid defines apartheid as inhumane acts committed to establish and maintain domination of one racial group over another. I mean, I think Huckabee just said that right there, right? Which is, Tucker, you don't understand. You can't even like Christians. You can't even like Christians because they might be an Arab, a Muslim, might just claim that he's a Christian. And then what are you going to do, right? He's going to come and kill you. So the legal question, not simply whether groups are treated differently, it is whether it is a racial group distinction. I think we got that. Systematic domination. I think we've got that. Inhumane acts. Seems to be a lot of examples of that. The raping of the people in prison, Gaza itself. Intent to maintain that regime. Pretty much there. We could talk about the legal structures in Gaza. I've gone over those multiple times. Whether Israel, bottom line here, whether Israel's laws in the West Bank and Gaza constitute apartheid under international law is contested legal and political question, not a settled one. Some international bodies and legal scholars say yes. Israel and others argue their legal definition is not met. No international criminal conviction has formally adjudicated the claim, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I did look to see if Huckabee himself had made claims about apartheid in South Africa, just to see how consistent he is. The only time he's ever talked about that I could find that he's made comments about apartheid is to say that Israel is not part of this whole situation. There you go. Last thing I'm going to do here is play a clip. This is this is Candace Owens. She has I guess she's doing something on Erica, what's her name? Kirk? And here we go.
President Trump says that Kirk has died after he was shot from a nearby building. After being shot at Utah Valley University. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead.
Oh, that's great.
The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry.
I didn't even get to give him a kiss goodbye.
That young man, I forgive him.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Erica Kirk has been named the new CEO of Turning Point USA.
My husband's dead. Like, I'm not trying to be morbid, but he's dead.
It's weird to say excited.
Describes her husband's funeral as the event of the century. Merch, hats.
We have 50,000 plus hat orders.
Nobody knows why she's out there in a glittering pantsuit in a recreated tent that her husband tragically was murdered in, throwing merch out.
Everyone grieves differently, so if someone's acting weird, don't read into that.
Zionists, the Prime Minister of Israel, all lied through their teeth about Charlie Kirk.
Her operation was in Constanta, the epicenter of Romania's trafficking scandal.
We heard conversations to have with a 15-year-old. I'm gonna touch your butt. $8.6 million to their own shell company. What is going on?
We have nothing to hide. My aunt used to tell me, never do something that you don't want on the front page of a newspaper.
That is a teaser. I am looking forward to that. Dave Smith, a little bit of action in there. Jimmy Dore as well gets a little bit of love. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Well, I hope you had a fun time tonight. It's a Monday. We just did a little bit of a legal analysis. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit this show up at tyleryonke.substack.com, and don't forget, this Israel stuff. I mean, yeah, that's where we're at, everybody. All right, take care. We will see you probably still Thursday. Still coming at you Thursday, maybe a Wednesday. Who knows? My daughter's in town, so push the little thing. Probably Thursday. I think we're going to be doing Thursday. See ya.
Things are going to...
Okay, I'm leaving now.
But she's back.
And now.
Tyler, if you had any clout about you, if you had any knowledge of the real world,
none of us are screaming, "Let's kill Tyler."
Tyler says, "My
Jewish princess."
You low key, you're one of the funniest dudes in the Liberty world that I know.
More or less, eat shit and die.
He's just a podunk lawyer somewhere in rural California. He's an idiot, really.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Do you see what he just did to Tyler?
I feel like you don't get the appreciation for your humorous wit.
What are you talking about? I didn't say that. Why don't you argue with something I said, you dumb bastard?